Quick shout out to my amazing sponsors for the Patriot Barbie podcast. My title sponsor is Dr. Stephen Soloway. He is known globally as the Miracle MD. He's the author of Bad Medicine, a book about bad politics, bad government, bad hospitals, bad drug companies, and bad doctors. Buy it on drsoloway.com. My other sponsor, Celtic Plastics, is a water filtration system for your home and work that clears bacteria, fluoride, and heavy metals from your drinking water. You can buy one on CelticPlastics.com and use my code PatriotBarbie for 10% off. And one last shout out to Red Balloon. Thousands of companies are pushing back on wokeness in the workplace. Find a freedom-loving, non-woke job at redballoon.work and follow them on Instagram at redballoonwork. For all my sponsor info, book, and merch, go to patriotbarbie.com. Like, subscribe, and share this podcast. Now, let's get into today's episode. Welcome to the Patriot Barbie podcast. I'm your host, Lindsey Graham, author and conservative activist. I love Jesus. I love America. I'm a proud wife, mom of 3, and I'm having bold and witty conversations with America's patriots, the ones that cancel culture desperately want to blacklist. Trust me, I've been there. In 2020, I defied government lockdowns in Oregon, reopened my salon, and became an icon of freedom. I've been targeted by government and raging liberals every day since, and I refuse to back down. Patriots, I'm here to tell you, your values are worth fighting for. The Patriot Barbie podcast starts now. Welcome to the Patriot Barbie podcast, and I am honored to have yet another amazing, intelligent doctor on this podcast. She's a female, which makes me very happy. I love to empower strong women. She's also part of a new company called The Wellness Company, who I will be working with moving forward. And the goal here is to kind of expose what's going on in the medical community. You know, I've sort of turned into kind of one of those, you would call it a conspiracy theorist, but really it's more of a questioning theorist. What's going on? Why is America so sick? Why are we not getting to the bottom of why they're so sick instead of just simply medicating? Is the medical community just trying to make a buck off of our illness? As an extremely healthy person, as a person who focuses on what they eat and my health, and who has never really had to go to the hospital ever, I am one of those people that has started speaking up against the medical community and some of the flaws, but I don't have authority there. Dr. Heather Gessling does, and I am really excited. We're going to talk to her about some of the hard stuff, COVID vaccines, what's really going on behind the scenes in hospitals and with Medicare and all of those things, as well as what the Wellness Company is and why I endorse and work with this company. So Heather, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the Patriot Barbie podcast.
Thank you, fellow freedom fighter, Mama Bear.
Yeah, it's usually the opposite. Like, okay, if I'm speaking out against something, doctors would hate me, but it's so refreshing. There's like a movement of doctors that are saying, listen, we're not all here for the quick buck and for the, 800 prescriptions. So
we're here for the patients.
Yes, thank you so much. That's kind of the purpose, is it not?
Yeah. Most
First
physicians
to
have
no
lost
harm.
their way, but many
Yes.
physicians are coming back and realizing that they've been controlled. Yeah.
Who's controlling them?
Employers, governmental agencies, pharmaceutical companies, evidence-based medicine guidelines, all the things that aren't best for the patient.
So I had this is great. I actually had this conversation with a random girl in the sauna this morning at the gym. And we just talked about how, you might go to the doctor with one small, concern, and they put you on a medication. Well, that medication, as we've seen just on basic commercials, has 20 side effects. So then when you come back to the doctor with a side effect, it's like, well, let's put you on a medication for that. And is it really about, when a doctor does that, is it really about they're not educated, they don't know any better? Or is it about, well, this pharmaceutical company gave me this med so I can make money if I sell it, and then I can make more money if I sell the next one? Where do you think we started to go wrong?
So we're not allowed, there's not any type of like actual kickback. Whenever you're prescribing pharmaceuticals as physicians, there's nothing that I'm aware of at this time. There was a bunch of laws that were changed in 2007, 2008. And any of the like sort of perks and incentives that physicians used to get from pharmaceutical companies, like golf course trips or, uh, vacations, all of that became illegal. My opinion is that most of the time physicians are doing what's easy. So a patient comes in and they're, having some signs of depression or anxiety or any other, typical symptom, heartburn. And instead of going through all of the different environmental or lifestyle issues that can be contributing to those diagnoses, the patient is just given a pharmaceutical, whether it's generic or brand name, they're still given a pharmaceutical instead of, being discussed what are all the things that they can do to change, that they can change in their life to fix the problem. And,
Right.
when physicians are having to see 35, 40 a day in order to stay in the black with either their practices or to make their employers happy with how many, physician or patients that they've seen, they'll do what's the easiest thing and the quickest thing.
So when I hear you say that,
I take back. So there's a whole separate issue though with the remdesivir medication that was used for COVID. The hospitals did get big bonuses for that. Now that's a separate issue.
Like how is that possible if you just told me that it was illegal to be reimbursed like with a golf trip or a vacation, then how did they get reimbursed for administering a drug?
I don't really know what the reasoning was to give these big bonuses for toxic medication. Remdesivir, why did hospitals get extra payment for that? They got hefty extra payment for putting patients on vents. All of these things that were the opposite of what should have happened.
Right.
Yeah, those are two separate things. So I don't have a good answer for that one.
Interesting. Okay, well, I want to get your opinion on this because when I hear you say that doctors see 35 to 40 patients a day, and it's to stay in the black, and everyone knows that doctors, we're all under the impression that doctors make a whole bunch of money. But is it a vicious cycle where they got maybe selfish and they wanted to make a lot of money, so they'd hustle patients through by giving them pharmaceuticals, but then those pharmaceuticals would create another issue, which would then bring that patient back, which would make them busier again, which would now need to make them go even faster. And now we're like just going in this vicious cycle where we've got unhealthy patients because you didn't just take the time in the first place.
So I totally think that that's true, but I don't think that there was like the intent or sort of the scheming, like I'm going to make my patients sicker. I think that physicians just in general don't really know how to provide wellness for their patients. All they know how to do is treat diseases with pharmaceuticals. And that's essentially all we're taught in medical school is how to treat diseases with pharmaceuticals instead of teaching nutrition and stress management, making sure you obviously get plenty of sleep, teaching about that our foods are depleted of nutrients, and teaching about the importance of specific nutrients and how they help our immune system, etc. We're not taught any of that. And in fact, and I talk about this in my book, but really we're taught that nutrients, vitamins, supplements are a complete waste of money, that it just makes expensive urine.
That's insane. I will say that I rarely need to go to the doctor. I want to say the only times I've ever gone to the doctor is when I've been pregnant with a child. So that's a little bit necessary. But I remember with my third child, I was still working, and he made me terribly sick, and I got lightheaded, dizzy in a way that I never have in my entire life. Like the room was spinning. I was certain I was going to fall. I sat down. I felt so embarrassed. I was like, everyone stop paying attention to me. But yet I knew I needed medical attention.
Yeah.
So I was rushed to the doctor, and we told them how far along I was, and I drank plenty of water, and yes, but there were no questions asked that even as a non-medical professional, none were asked, like about my workout routine, about how I was eating, about my stress level. It was like, yeah, drink more water and rest. And I was like, I just told you I drink plenty of water, and I just told you I rest. So, okay, well, let's not figure out why I almost passed out and could have died and killed my baby. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so
that happens a lot. They don't have the answer and they give you a generic answer like that and send you on your way. But
Yep.
honestly, a lot of the episodes like that aren't going to happen again. And so,
Mhm.
they're like, oh, is it really worth digging into? They don't have the time to do it, honestly.
Right. Is there a risk there where, they didn't dig into it, and they actually, I remember them saying this conversation is being recorded, and I was like, good. And when I left there, I thought to myself, I don't know what caused this, and now neither do you, and you don't really seem to care, but you're welcome for like the $800 appointment.
Yeah.
What happens if like next week this happens again and I've got it on record that you didn't really ask me any legitimate questions? I
Mhm.
even had said I work out 6 times a week. They didn't bother asking, well, what do you do when you work out? And to me, I'm like, it's pretty important because if I'm overlifting or if I'm doing something overly strenuous,
Mhm.
is there a risk for the doctor that they didn't pay enough attention to the problem? Or is it kind of like,
Well,
no, that's not really covered?
There certainly is. If something really bad happens, like then you pass out and fall downstairs and lose your baby. I mean, if something really bad happened that was directly tied to their lack of intervention or
Hmm.
diagnostic, efforts, then I guess they could be sued. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen very often. It doesn't happen where, they something big and bad happens. The human body,
Right.
despite what we do to it, is amazing and can usually, fix itself.
Yeah. So, yeah, my next question was, and I think you kind of just answered it, was like, has there been a rise in malpractice suits because doctors have started rushing through patients, or is it really kind of people aren't maybe educated enough to understand that they were mistreated or
I
not treated?
don't know. I don't know. I'd have to look at statistics. I know that I've never had a malpractice suit, and I know that recently my malpractice insurance went up like 15%. I don't know.
And you're like,
And
why?
we're like, what the heck? And
Yeah.
across the board, we've heard that the malpractice rates are going up. So I don't know if,
Interesting.
malpractice suits in general have gone up and for what reason.
Mm.
But it would be worth looking into.
Yes, it would. So, I never read your bio, but let me read it really quick so people kind of know a little bit more about you. You're the COO for the Chief Medical Board of the Wellness Company, which we're going to definitely talk about.
Mhm.
Dr. Gessling graduated from Oklahoma Christian University with a BS in biochemistry and went on to graduate from medical school and residency at the University of Missouri Columbia. She is board certified by the American Board of Family Medicine. Her passion and expertise is a driving force behind our mission to unite and stand together in our quest for proper patient led healthcare. She has vast experience in running her own clinic and having escaped the world of corporate medicine. She has experienced and delivered firsthand the next wave of American healthcare. So, um, what is the wellness company? What inspired it? How did you get into it? Tell me all the things.
Oh, fun
All of it.
So the wellness company, the idea about the wellness company was the brainchild of Foster Colson, who is our founder, and he was amazing close friends with Dr. Zev Zelenko, the late Dr. Zev Zelenko. And
Yes.
they had worked together on lots of projects for the Z-Stack line of supplements. Oh my goodness. I almost
Which I use, by the way. I
Hey,
use and endorse.
I
Yes.
saw that you did. That's awesome. Yes.
Yeah. What?
And
How funny.
so
My little medical community is building.
yes, there you go. So you've connected with the right people.
Yes.
And so he already had learned about the craziness happening in the healthcare world, and of course had witnessed what was happening with medical freedom with Dr. Zelenko, and Dr.
Mhm.
Zelenko being, hammered in the press for his protocols using, the medications that treat COVID.
You're
And
trying not to say it. I see you trying not to say it.
I don't know what I'm allowed to say. I've been on a lot of these
Oh,
all
I've
different
made sure
rules.
that this podcast is cancel proof. It's like only on platforms that are probably not going to censor us. So,
So, his acknowledgement how great hydroxychloroquine works for COVID. And
mhm.
so, Foster saw all of this happening, knew what was happening with the vaccines and the freedoms that were being taken away, for those that weren't choosing to submit to those
Mhm.
products. And so he already had this in his mind. At the same time, all of this that was happening, where he was thinking about developing a company, there was a group of us physicians that were working with a telehealth company in order to build that telehealth company and provide access to patients for care that's unbiased, that they can
Okay.
get access for those medicines that treat COVID, or
Mhm.
access to be able to get treatment for long haul COVID or vaccine injury. We're already working on all of that. And then
Ooh,
miraculously, I don't know exactly how Foster got in touch with this telehealth company, but we all joined forces and
awesome.
built this company. And we started at the beginning of May. And we had all the resources that we needed to make this happen. And we're super, super excited that this is now available for the American people. And we're going to be quickly
Mhm.
expanding to probably Canada or other countries. But the main pillars of our company are telehealth, which provides unbiased care. You can call our telehealth provider, and we have access to care for any state in the country, and that provider is going to be trained on um, being able to treat medicine in a way
Mhm.
that does not rely on pharmaceuticals necessarily. Of course, they'll
Mhm.
give you those pharmaceuticals if you need them, and we'll also try and help you get off of pharmaceuticals. We'll treat
Mhm.
long haul COVID, we'll treat vax injury, we'll treat COVID. We'll tell you the truth about what we know about several pharmaceuticals, and how they're probably toxic for you. And and then the
We're gonna talk about that.
Exactly. I mean, so much evidence of fraud coming out for all of these,
Yeah.
pharmaceuticals, where we've relied on science that we were taught for
Mhm.
decades, and turns out a lot of it was a lie. Um, but because of that, we are providing line of nutraceuticals that can be utilized in place of pharmaceuticals, or really
Ooh.
just essential products that patients need every day in order to maintain good health, because our food is depleted. Most people
Mhm.
don't have adequate vitamin D levels. Most people, need some sort of supplementation, and we work through that. But the supplement products, we have several proprietary lines that have been formulated by our chief medical team. And for specific conditions, I have one for diabetes that I worked really hard on. Dr. Schmidt has one for sleep formula, and it doesn't have melatonin in it. It has multiple other supplements that can help with sleep and relaxation and calming. And those are just examples.
Yeah.
And then another pillar is raising up and supporting independent pharmacies that stood the test. We have pharmacies that
Mm.
we know did not push the vaccine, and that did provide
Mhm.
the medicines that patients needed for COVID. We have
So good.
those pharmacies that we are connecting with to support them. And then we also have education for our members.
Wow, a lot more than I was under the impression. So, so telehealth, just so I am aware, it's like the ability to just call in or Zoom with a doctor,
Yeah. Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and like that mostly started during COVID when they locked everybody at home and you couldn't go to the doctor, right?
That's one of the good things that came out of COVID is
Mhm.
is is easier access to care. And
Yeah.
telehealth is one of the most great inventions, that we have now. We've had it for a long time, but it just
Mhm.
wasn't commonplace. And there was all these insurance rules on,
Right.
specific requirements in order to do telehealth. I personally have a direct primary care clinic, and I do telehealth, and I don't have the insurance rules telling me exactly what the requirements are for telehealth. If I need to talk to a patient and I want to talk to them face to face, and they don't have to come in, I don't feel like it's a requirement for them to come in. I grab a telehealth visit with them, or
Mhm.
we just talk on the phone if that's what's needed.
Yeah.
We are flexible. We don't place rules and restrictions on how patients should get their care. We do what works for them. So with our telehealth access, patients can get care easily, quickly, or frequently. And we know
Mhm.
that it's going to come from physicians that are going to treat them appropriately, not be a
Yeah.
pet dispenser for pharmaceuticals, like Foster
Yeah.
says. And We have dug deep into a lot of these telehealth companies, and they are getting, you're not going to, I mean, you are going to believe
Oh
this,
my gosh.
but a lot of the telehealth companies that are so prevalent or commonplace that you might think of, they're getting supplemented by pharmaceutical companies.
I believe it. I totally believe it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
It's like
so,
having a sponsor. Like
yes,
you're
right,
paid
they're being
more. Yeah. Yep.
subsidized by pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you guys accept insurance or is it a membership? Is it a membership type?
It's so we have a monthly membership, and that's
Okay.
basically to keep costs lower and to bring you into the community. But it's a $10 monthly membership, and then
It's nothing.
yeah, and then we
That's
have
nothing.
low cost acute care visits. I think they're 69. I'm trying to remember exactly the cost. It may be 65. And then we also have, but we don't accept insurance.
Okay.
Insurance changes the whole dynamic. Physicians don't get to focus on what they need to focus on when they're utilizing insurance, because insurance has all of these things. And I lived in that
Mhm.
world before I started my direct primary care clinic. I lived in that world for 11, 12 years where I had to make insurance happy. I had to check all the boxes. They told me what I was supposed to focus on during a visit. Seriously, they
Oh
told
my
me
gosh.
checklist of what I was supposed to focus on during a visit. We were part of an accountable care organization, and we had all these requirements that we had to meet for each patient. Things that were not what I wanted to focus on, not what I wanted to take care of in the visit and utilize the time effectively. So we don't take insurance. And also, we're not controlled by insurance by doing that.
Right.
And so, as far as the packages that we have just acute care visits for almost anything that you need care for. But then we also have more extensive packages that are for long haul COVID or just wellness in general and or back injury, and they involve really great lab panels as part of that package. And what we have been able to do because of the power of our company is to provide access to care for about the price of what you would pay for labs.
Okay.
If you had like a high deductible plan or if you had to pay cash pay, we've been able to negotiate great prices. And so whenever you go in, you will have multiple visits associated with purchasing that package. You'll see the physician multiple times. You'll get a lab panel. We'll assess you, see if there's any
Mhm.
other secondary diagnosis that's going on with your that may be associated with the long haul COVID or associated with the vax injury. We'll assess that. We'll see what else might need treated. We'll see what nutrients you might be depleted in. And then we'll start you on protocols that we have developed, that our chief medical team has developed in order to treat those conditions.
So incredible. So I have to get into the vaccine injury.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have to get into that area because from what we see, which is, ridiculous. I won't watch the news. I don't trust the news. So I have to get my information from my conspiracy theorist friends on Instagram, right? And the
Which
the
most of the
idea
time
is
are right, right? The most of the
they're
time they're gonna
yeah,
be
they're
right.
they're
They're
they're truth
already right,
tellers,
or they're gonna be
basically.
right.
Yeah. Um Is the if you're I know there's probably different levels of vaccine injuries. I'm sure
Mhm.
it depends on how many boosters you went and got. I'm
For sure.
sure it depends on your lifestyle outside of just getting that
Yeah.
chemical injected into you. Can you you can't cure it, like it's in your body now, but to what level can you manage the idea that, this could injure and has injured a lot of people?
Mhm.
How effective are you guys at getting that under control?
So I personally have been treating vaccine injury in my clinic for a year and a half now. I started seeing an incredible amount of vaccine injury in April of May of last year. It was like my world was like Twilight Zone. Every day I was having multiple patients coming in. It was like these things that were more that were previously rare. I was seeing them all the time, and I realized what was
Like
happening.
what?
It like strokes in a 44-year-old
Yeah.
and transverse myelitis in a 36-year-old, and like all of
Mm,
these things that were very rare before. I was seeing so many blood clots. I was seeing
mm,
menstrual irregularities, once I was able to identify all these patterns, which is the way physicians are supposed to work, right? They're supposed to be able to assess what they're seeing on the ground and be able to either make assessments based off of their own observation or being able to talk to other physicians about it. And because of censorship, physicians were kept from really talking about it. They couldn't even talk about it in the physician lounge or in the hallway because it was taboo to be able to say, oh, I think that this stroke is from having the vaccine last week. They weren't even allowed to say that. And so I've been treating this for a long time and developing protocols. And now we've worked with the chief medical team to develop protocols as a group. And so we've also discussed it with world-renowned experts that we have, relationships with. And these protocols, basically, we're working to target the inflammation, to neutralize the spike protein, to target nutritional needs that can help with reducing inflammation, or that may be common with these types of energy or with these types of injuries. And so because of these different protocols, we hope to alleviate the effects of the vaccine, although we know that we don't yet know. We know that we don't yet know when the spike protein is no longer being produced. So all of the studies showed at this point that when they stop the study, the spike protein is still being produced months after getting the vaccine. And
so after you've gotten the vaccine or a booster or 2 boosters or 8 boosters, the spike protein is still there. It's still active. It's still reproducing, but at some point it will stop at some point.
So we don't know.
Honestly. We don't know.
We know that it's still hanging out. It's in the lymph tissue. We find it in all sorts of areas of the body. And also the lipid nanoparticle. Here's a whole separate thing. So the vaccine is composed of a genetic sequence and encompassed or encapsulated by the lipid nanoparticle, which is like a fat. And so that is how it gets into your cells. And so it slips through your cell membrane because of that lipid nanoparticle covering. It was designed to do that. And if you think about it, the craziness of the fact that they designed it to be able to slip through all the different cell types.
Yeah.
What we found out is that lipid nanoparticle likes to go accumulate in the brain, in the bone marrow, in the ovaries, the testes. It's the first vaccine in history that goes to the brain. And they know that. That's how they designed it. So no other vaccines before would go to the brain, but they designed it to be able to slip through the blood-brain barrier, go to all the different cells. And so not only does the spike protein cause incredible inflammation, but the lipid nanoparticle itself causes incredible inflammation. This is probably one of the reasons why we're seeing so much problems with menstrual irregularities. That lipid nanoparticle is going and accumulating in the ovaries and wreaking all sorts of havoc and creating inflammation. And we don't really know how long it sticks around or how much damage it's doing. It's also going into the bone marrow, creating inflammation. And also the spike protein itself, because it's so inflammatory, we know all the dirty things that the spike protein does. And it affects your body's own mechanisms for cancer prevention. That spike protein does. It affects the p53 molecule that helps inhibit cancer. It's like our guardian of the genome.
It destroys it. It messes with it.
So
now people are more prone to cancer now.
That's correct. More prone to cancer for multiple reasons.
And when you say that it's going into your fat cells and your brain cells and is it going in there and it's staying? That's it? You can't get it back out?
So I think that the lipid nanoparticle will degrade. I don't know how long the spike protein gets produced. We do know, I don't know if you noticed, but at the beginning, the CDC was saying that there was no evidence that the mRNA would affect our DNA. We knew it was a lie because you have this enzyme called reverse transcriptase, which can take RNA and transcribe it backwards into DNA. And then that DNA can be floating around and get incorporated. But we had a study that came out, I think it's been 7 or 8 months now, that they showed that genetic sequence transcribes backwards into DNA, and it incorporated into the liver cells, hepatocytes. And
Oh my
so
gosh.
then they took that off the CDC. I do believe it was the CDC's website that they changed. So now they can't say it doesn't change our DNA.
They're changing their mind? No.
Yeah,
They
right.
lied in the beginning? No.
Admitting that they're wrong. Rochelle Walensky is saying, we really didn't do a good job. We need to, tweak the CDC a bit, revamp it. Yeah.
I feel like you can't just hit delete on the website and like undo people's lives. You can't.
That's exactly right. You can't. I mean,
And these
we
people don't have a
pretend that we never
claim,
did
right?
that. Yeah.
They don't have a claim. They don't have a medical claim. They can't sue. They can't get reparations because they signed something saying that they assume all the risks.
I mean, I think that's probably what everybody did sign, but pharmaceutical companies, they have no liability. The government has no liability. I mean, who is going to be held responsible for this?
Right. Well, I would love to see Fauci held responsible for one. I'd like to see him in jail. That would be fantastic.
Me too.
But I mean, getting past the like, okay, you got the shot, you were deceived, you were lied to, you now have blood clots and myocarditis, and at least they can come to you guys, get health, get a package that sort of starts to reverse all of those effects, is what you're saying.
That's what,
start to undo the damage.
Based off of what we know about the spike protein, myocarditis, the damage that it's done, we do believe that the protocol, which does include some generic pharmaceuticals, and the supplements that we have researched and find to be helpful, can really help a patient. And I forgot to finish. So when I was treating all of these patients over the last year and a half, I have helped so many patients start feeling back to normal. First, they have to admit what it is, and then they realize they need to listen to me to help get the treatment. And so patients coming, that want the treatment, they have to admit, if it's long haul and they recognize that it's associated with the illness, that's one thing. But they also potentially have to recognize that it may be they feel so bad because of getting the vaccine.
Right. Interesting. So there are people willing to call in and saying, I have these issues, but I'm not going to admit that it was like, I won't.
Well, I think that they're not going to come for treatment unless they realize what's happening is my
interesting. So we've got to awaken. Yeah. I mean, we have to. I just love it because I've believed these things for months. I believe that there's been a spike in strokes and myocarditis in children and blood clots like we've never seen. And you can't fake, random people passing out in random situations, kids dying. How many athletes have fallen over dead on fields? And yet just by compiling those together, it's still, in my opinion, it's still a theory. But to hear a medical doctor say, yes, no, in the clinic, I am going to say with confidence, this has increased and it has been since the vaccine.
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah. And you know what I have noticed, you probably noticed it too, is the amount of patients that not only, and you've seen this in celebrities, not only do they pass out, they don't get any warning. If you feel like you're going to pass out, you're kind of like woozy.
Yes.
And you like take precaution. These patients, they just bam, like within a second. And that is an injury that's killing a lot of people. I had a mother of a friend who she passed out, and they called the EMT, and she was at a public facility. She was at a public place, and the EMT was there, and they were assessing her. She passed out so hard and so fast, fell on her face, and died.
No.
Right there in front of everybody. There was people around, and there was like no warning. She just, again, passed out and died. And so that's the kind of like episodes that are happening from this. And I suppose, you've seen these crazy clots. Have you seen these white protein like structures, whatever they are? They're not even blood clots.
Have you seen
spray?
Have you seen there's who are the people that dissect dead people?
Morticians, is that what or pathologists?
They are finding these long, stringy white like, what is that? It's not nameable, right?
It's
It's not.
not. It's like I think it's just protein type substance. I think we've
So weird.
called it amyloid, but you can pull it out and it's got like branches, tentacles from the where it was sitting in, the arterial
Oh,
branches, and you pull it out and lay it out. It's a structure we've never seen before. You're right. We don't have a name for this.
I think that should be alarming to everyone. Like there are, after you get vaccinated, because it's only vaccinated people, COVID vaccinated people, after you die, which by the way, you died. So let that be another warning.
Mm-hmm.
The autopsy reveals things in your body that have never before in history existed.
Yes.
Like, how alarming of a statement is that?
I know. You would think
That
it
is
would
how
be
foreign.
so glaringly obvious that at this point we would have
Yeah.
figured it out, and it would be so, prevalent. Everybody would know. And people are slowly, waking up. I've had, people that know me that come up and say, "Hey doc, should I get that vaccine?" I'm like, no. And they're like, "Yeah, I've been hearing about some clots." And I'm like, "Yeah, it took a while, right?" I mean,
Yeah.
just now hearing. But it's taken a year, almost 2 years, year and a half.
And they're hearing it, by the way, they're hearing it from people like me. They're hearing it from the other conspiracy theorists. They're hearing it from conservatives who are like, hey, this thing, we should not trust it. They're not
Yeah.
actually hearing it on the news. And that's why it's so sad. They may have
Mhm.
already went and gotten it and then said, well, I
Mhm.
heard there's blood clots. And it's like, well, I wish the news would have stepped up
I know.
and at least put this idea into people's head, like, do your research first, or let's wait a little bit and see what happens.
Yeah.
So with the wellness company, you were talking about your nutraceuticals.
Nutraceuticals. Yeah.
Nutraceuticals.
Mhm.
Um, are those prescription style medications, or is your platform also a resource where people can go on and just get these? I
But
know
you
there's
can
some
choose by
things
the
like you don't want to take diabetic
right.
pills unless you're diabetic, but
Right.
what's the structure there?
Yeah. So I would say that almost anybody could use any nutraceutical and it would probably do them no harm. Like the one that I developed for diabetes or blood glucose, sorry, I have to
Mhm.
say blood sugar, for improving those types of issues. I would say even if you don't necessarily have an issue, it's probably not going to do you harm, because most of the time, if you don't have an issue, it's not going to overcorrect it. But that being said, there are specific conditions that I would recommend for certain nutraceuticals. We've,
Nutraceuticals.
we've said that
You're
word.
you're poor thing. You've been doing this your whole life, and now you're like, my whole brain is speaking differently.
I know you're so
But hey,
right.
that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Before you know it, all the doctors are going to be saying nutraceuticals,
Oh,
and
I
you will
hope
have changed the world.
we plan to do a lot of education. In fact, have a medical
Yes.
school, and so yeah, so there's specific conditions, blood sugar for the one that I created, insomnia for the one that Dr.
Mhm.
Schmidt created, long haul COVID or vaccine injury for Dr. Vanderwaters.
What
There
is
is
what is long haul COVID? What is that?
so patients that have COVID sometimes just never get to feeling like themselves again.
Oh,
They're
okay. Yeah.
fatigued or joint pain
Hmm.
or, brain fog and
Yep.
concentration issues, all of those things. You probably got inflammation going on in the brain. You probably got inflammation going on in other parts of your body. You probably got some lingering COVID infection in your gut.
Hmm.
These are the things that are creating the long haul COVID problem, and they need treatment.
Hmm.
Your body's just not able to overcome that infection, that illness, or the inflammatory effects of that infection. So,
Yeah.
so,
So you
so
can
the,
tell when I have a
the
question.
nutraceuticals, they are not pharmaceutical products. They don't require prescription, but they are for specific conditions. Dr. McCullough has one for heart health, myocarditis, and he
Mm.
has a specific protocol that he's used in patients for the myocarditis associated with the back injury. And then we also have a midose support supplement that can provide nutrition and the supplements that your cells need, your mitochondria need to fully function efficiently, which is a huge problem with long haul COVID back injury. In fact, Dr. Cole has pictures, Dr. Ryan Cole has pictures that he took of cells, and it shows the mitochondria in those that have had the vaccine. It's just blown to smithereens. Mitochondria is just destroyed, and that's the energy producing part of your cell. So no wonder patients are just exhausted and fatigued. Their mitochondria that produces their energy is not functioning correctly. So we have support to help the mitochondria that aren't destroyed, that they need to work better and function more efficiently. And your cells will regenerate and create new mitochondria, but the ones that have been destroyed do definitely create fatigue.
Okay. And have you noticed with like long haul COVID, is there a certain type of patient that tends to hang on to COVID longer? Someone that's maybe like overweight or doesn't exercise or eat right? Or is it kind of like you never know?
Yeah, I would say it's the ones that already have like a metabolic syndrome going on, that have issues with blood sugar or obesity or hypertension. And one of the things that we have found that works super well for long haul COVID is a straight ketogenic diet. Just meat, protein, some vegetables, straight ketogenic diet. It reduces the inflammation in the brain. It'll help with brain fog and concentration issues.
So eat the way God designed us to eat, like meat and from the earth and fruits and vegetables. What a shocking concept.
Not any of this processed crap, the carbs and the
no ramen noodles for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, cereal with,
skip breakfast.
Milk.
Intermittent fasting is important. Yes. Yeah.
Wow, so incredible. What else? What other resources? So you guys have telehealth, you have nutraceuticals, you have, treatments for long haul COVID and COVID vaccine injured. I feel like there was one more thing that you said that the platform
I did say wellness. Offer. We have a couple of different wellness panels, just to be able to get labs a couple of times a year and assess like your cholesterol and vitamin D.
Yes. Okay.
And that type of thing, which is super. And the vitamin D level is important, and some other nutrients. We check that. Check your your insulin level, make sure you're not developing blood sugar issues, and A1C. And let me think. We are going to be developing a new package. We're working on it. We started working on it today, called Freedom from Pharma, which is helping patients get off their pharmaceuticals and doing it in a strategic way, and have visits and labs and replace the pharmaceuticals with nutraceuticals if possible, and be able to teach them all the different lifestyle things that can help them get off of their pharmaceuticals. A lot of patients can get off pharmaceuticals completely safely. And it's basically, the basis or the reasoning for a lot of these pharmaceuticals is based off of fraudulent studies anyway. Like, do we really need everybody on SSRIs? Do we really need everybody on omeprazole, the proton pump inhibitors, the acid reducers? Do we really need everybody on statins? All of these things that are causing harm, they're causing nutrient depletion. When you change the acid level in your gut so much and lower it so much, you're going to start getting less absorption of nutrients, less absorption of magnesium. It can lead to osteoporosis and bone density problems, which we also have a supplement for, specifically formulated by Dr. Ammerling. It's an amazing product. But all of these pharmaceuticals lead to chronic issues because of what they do to the homeostasis, nutrient absorption, all of it.
Yeah, it all goes back to just having what was intended to be in your body. And I think we, again, got on this vicious cycle where everyone started turning towards pharmaceuticals and putting chemicals into their body, just like everyone is, trying to go natural and organic and toxic free. And it's like, well, that medication that you're on is probably not helping. So that's exciting. The Freedom from Pharma is exciting because I've heard of a lot of people that do want to get off of their medication, but they go through these insane withdrawals, and I can't even imagine.
The SSRIs in particular, I've had patients frequently tell me, the withdrawal symptoms that they get like brain zaps, and, it's harder to get off those. Those definitely have to be tapered. And the omeprazole, the proton pump inhibitors, those types of medications, patients quickly become dependent on those. The body quickly gets very used to it and adjusted to that low acid level, and patients try to get off of that, and it's hard for them. You have to do it in a strategic way. You have to do it slowly and probably utilize some other heartburn medications that are less potent as you wean off. And of course, losing weight and not eating late at night and doing intermittent fasting, all of those things can help too.
Awesome. Tell me about your new book, The Next Wave is Brave.
We're so excited about this book. It is such a lovely, beautiful book. So
is it yours or is it the team's?
It's the team's.
Oh, awesome.
It's me, Dr. McCullough, Dr. Ammerling, Dr. Risch, Dr. Jen Vanderwater, and Dr. Janice Schmidt. And Foster Colson has a chapter in there as well. And basically, it's a book that has not been done as far as we know. We don't know of any other books out there like this. And so it not only talks about what we have experienced as medical professionals with COVID and our and the ups and downs and what we have lost standing up for medical freedom, but it also talks about the path forward and how we go forward, how the whole country can pull out of this situation that we're in, that we allowed ourselves to be in by compliance and by not standing up for truth, and to allow social media and governmental agencies to lie to us or censor us. So it gives steps to get out of this ridiculous situation that we're in, so that it doesn't happen again, and to help with promoting medical freedom.
Awesome. Oh, I love it. Oh, I can't wait. And when does it come out?
It's out. So
it's out. Oh, good. Where can we buy it?
You can get it on I think you can get it on Amazon, Kindle, Barnes and Noble. It's number one on Barnes and Noble right now. And we're number one in multiple categories on Amazon. And you can get it at Skyhorse Publishing. I think that's where you can get the hardcover book. Otherwise, ebook or paperback.
Okay. Oh my gosh. So I'm going to be emailing you and requesting a copy signed by each and every doctor.
Oh, okay. I'll get you one. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I'm definitely joining the wellness company. I actually have some family members that regretfully got vaccinated. They're not quite as conspiracy theory as me. They've woken up now. They've actually experienced symptoms of very mild vaccine injury.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, as an influencer in this specific category, as a conservative and a freedom fighter, a lot of people have asked me, my mom got the vaccine. What do I do now? And I'm like, don't know what to tell you. But now it's like, oh my gosh, this is so refreshing to hear. That there is treatment, that there are doctors who will not push it, that there are pharmacies that you guys recommend that will not push it, because there was a lot of guilt tripping, and that infuriates me. It's like, I'm a strong person. I would never get talked into doing something I didn't want to do. But the idea that people would go into the doctor and the doctors would manipulate parents into getting their kids vaccinated, and then, sorry if you have, side effects. And
I know
those people, at least they've woken up now.
I talk about that. I talk about that in my book, where I was the provider that was before I woke up. I was the one that was, pushing parents into vaccines, or, the one that would, belittle or dismiss their concerns. And they knew more about all the ridiculousness associated with all vaccines than I did. I mean, I was just giving the party line that they're safe. Yeah. All vaccines are safe and effective, and they've been heavily studied, and we've studied them all together. And that is a lie. There was a big conference that happened summer of 2021. I think it was the World Health Organization, that there was a scientist, a medical doctor, that came on and admitted, we've never studied what the effects are when we give all of these vaccines together, and when we mix and match brands, and when we mix and match, the different adjuvants, the different additives that are in these vaccines. They've never studied them, and they just flat out say that it's safe, it's fine, there's no
and
problem.
It's in children. We're giving it to children. Yeah. Well, so then good. Since I have you, before I pay my $10 membership, I've decided that I'm not interested in any more vaccines whatsoever for my 3 kids.
That's how it
would you say that's a valid mentality for me?
Here's what I say. I have never given my kids another vaccine either. And I think that parents have a right to know before we proceed on with all of the traditional medical interventions that have been pushed down our throats. I think parents have a right to know, why is there an explosion in autism? Why is there an explosion in ADHD? Why is there so much chronic illness in our kids? Why is there obesity? Of course, there's toxic foods and overeating, but is that it? Is it associated with the dramatic increase in the vaccine schedule for these children? Why in the world do we give hepatitis B to a 1-day-old? It's crazy. It's nuts. Yeah. Why do we do this? So
you sound like a real conspiracy theorist right now.
Well, I'm glad to be in part of the club.
Welcome. We're so honored to have you. I like having conspiracy theorists that actually know what they're talking about. It's like, I can say this stuff, but I have zero credibility or authority. And it's like, all right, everyone, I've got information from a doctor's mouth.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think that parents are absolutely waking up, and COVID and the vaccine and all of that is what did it. And so
you can whisper it all you want. They're still going to hear it.
Well, and you know, that's the good thing that's happened, right? That's one of the good things that's happened is now there's so much larger percentage of parents that are questioning. And I think they should question. I think they should decide what is best for their children. And maybe they decide to do particular vaccines because they feel like their child is at high risk, and that makes them feel like they're doing the right thing for their child. Or maybe they decide to do none, or maybe they go ahead and decide to do all of them, but it's their decision.
Right. And they should be informed. I think there's an issue, a big issue with the actual information as well, which is terrifying. So.
Which is terrifying. And I bet that most parents have no idea that if they're given informed consent, that none of these vaccines have been tested with each other.
Right. That's so scary. Well, you have been amazing. This is like everybody's free 1 hour, like medical advice from a freedom lover. Are you ready for your cheers?
Oh, yes. I have my cheers. Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
My water for.
Okay.
Cheers to good health and wellness.
Yay.
Yay.
Heather, thank you so much for coming on, and I will see you on your platform.
Awesome. Thanks, Lindsay. It's been so fun.
Thanks for tuning in to the Patriot Barbie podcast. Follow me on Truth Social at The Patriot Barbie and Instagram at the.patriot.barbie. Subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with your friends. You can find this show, my book Targeted, and my apparel line on www.patriotbarbie.com. God bless America, and God bless you.
It's Dylan's KC Barbecue at 4 Valley locations. Our sports bar in Arrowhead is packed with TVs for the ultimate sports fan. Our Wildlife World Zoo location will have you on the edge of your seat, dining right next to our 60,000-gallon shark tank. Dylan's Bayou at Pleasant Harbor has never-ending sunsets, beautiful people, and live music every weekend. And our newest location, Western Trails Ranch, is 12 acres of rodeo fun and live outdoor concerts for the entire family. It's Dylan's KC Barbecue, where we're elite, unique, and